In the quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho, a chilling discovery would soon unravel a nightmare that gripped the nation. On a serene November morning in 2022, the peaceful veneer of this close-knit community was shattered, leaving behind a silence that was deafening. Drone footage sweeps over the picturesque landscape of the University of Idaho campus, a place of learning and youthful aspiration, before slowly turning ominous as the music builds. Text on the screen reads, Moscow, Idaho, November 2022. A town where peace was shattered. The calm was a fragile illusion, about to be broken by an act of unimaginable violence that would forever scar the town and its people. The focus shifts to a single house at 1122 King Road, an off-campus residence that would become the epicenter of a national tragedy. As the sun rose on that fateful Sunday, the ordinary rhythms of college life came to a horrifying halt. The night before, friends had gathered, enjoying the simple moments that define youth. But in the early morning hours, something went terribly wrong. The narrative pieces together the timeline: housemates returning home after a night out, the unsettling silence that greeted them, and the eventual, horrifying discovery. A 911 call placed just before noon reported an unconscious person, a detail that barely scratched the surface of the grim reality awaiting first responders. The immediate arrival of police marked the beginning of an investigation that would consume the town and capture the world's attention. 4 young lives, full of promise and dreams, were brutally cut short. Kaylee Goncalves, a vibrant senior with an infectious laugh. Madison Mogan, her inseparable best friend, known for her kindness and bright spirit. Zana Kernodle, a junior whose energy lit up every room. And Ethan Chapin, a triplet visiting his girlfriend Zana, a young man with a boundless future ahead of him. As their smiling photographs appear on screen, the voiceover pays tribute to the people they were: students, friends, beloved children. Their sudden and violent death sent a shockwave of grief through their families and the entire University of Idaho community. A loss so profound it felt incomprehensible. Their stories were not just headlines, they were lives filled with laughter, ambition, and love, now silenced forever. In the hours and days that followed the discovery, a thick fog of chaos and fear descended upon Moscow. The initial lack of information from law enforcement created a vacuum that was quickly filled with rumor and terror. Students, once carefree, were now seen in shots of bewilderment and grief, gathering in vigils to mourn their classmates. The police presence on and around campus grew, a constant visible reminder of the unseen threat that might still be lurking. News vans lined the streets as media reports flashed across the screen, broadcasting the story to a stunned nation. The question on everyone's mind was the same: who could have committed such a heinous act, and why? The search for answers had just begun, and the community braced itself for a long and difficult journey toward justice. From the first moments investigators arrived, they knew this case would be unlike any other. At a quiet, off-campus residence on King Road, a scene of unimaginable horror was slowly coming into focus. From a distance, the house appeared normal, but inside, a complex puzzle awaited law enforcement. There were no signs of a forced entry, a detail that immediately confounded the police. Complicating matters further were 2 surviving housemates who had slept through the attack, adding another layer of mystery to the timeline. Processing the scene was a monumental task, requiring a meticulous inch-by-inch approach to preserve every potential clue. Teams of forensic specialists began the painstaking work of collecting evidence, knowing that the smallest fiber or faintest print could one day break the case wide open. In the initial days, the investigation struggled to gain traction. With no obvious suspects and no murder weapon recovered from the scene, law enforcement faced a daunting challenge. Investigators fanned out across the Moscow, Idaho community, canvassing neighborhoods and knocking on doors, hoping for a sliver of information. The pressure mounted with each passing day, amplified by intense media scrutiny and a community desperate for answers. Police held press conferences, appealing directly to the public for any tips or surveillance footage that might shed light on the events of that tragic night. The initial 911 call, made hours after the crime, provided a harrowing glimpse into the discovery, but offered few clues about the perpetrator, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. As detectives sifted through countless hours of surveillance footage from the area, a crucial piece of the puzzle began to emerge. A single vehicle, a white Hyundai Elantra, was spotted on camera near the King Road residence around the time of the murders. Stylized graphics can trace its path, showing the car making multiple passes by the house before and after the estimated time of the attack. Realizing its significance, law enforcement issued a nationwide plea to the public for help in locating the vehicle and its driver. This public bolo, or "be on the lookout," transformed the white Elantra from just another car on the road into the single most important lead in the case, mobilizing a countrywide search. While the search for the car was underway, another breakthrough was happening in the forensic lab. Back at the crime scene, investigators had recovered crucial DNA evidence, including a single source of male DNA on a knife sheath left behind by the killer. Abstract visuals of DNA sequencing and lab technicians at work underscore the high-tech nature of modern forensics. This wasn't just standard DNA matching. Investigators leveraged advanced forensic techniques, including investigative genetic genealogy. By uploading the unknown DNA profile to public genealogy databases, they could build a family tree, which pointed them toward a new pool of potential suspects. What had been a cold trail was suddenly becoming warmer thanks to cutting-edge science. The two primary leads, the car and the DNA, soon merged, pointing investigators in one specific direction. The white Elantra was traced to an owner in Pullman, Washington, a neighboring town just a short drive from Moscow, Idaho. The vehicle was registered to Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student in criminology at Washington State University. This discovery was the moment everything clicked into place. Investigators began to connect the dots, delving into Kohberger's background, movements, and digital footprint. After weeks of intense, round-the-clock work, the painstaking efforts of local, state, and federal law enforcement had finally led them to a prime suspect, setting the stage for a dramatic cross-country surveillance operation and an eventual arrest. In the heart of Moscow, Idaho, a community held its breath, shattered by a crime that defied comprehension. The brutal murders of 4 university students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, had cast a long, dark shadow, sparking a nationwide search for answers. For weeks, the case was a puzzle with missing pieces, a tapestry of grief and fear woven with scant clues. But as investigators worked tirelessly behind the scenes, sifting through an ocean of digital and physical evidence, the first glimmers of a breakthrough began to emerge. The focus narrowed, a single thread pulling taut amidst the chaos. A white Hyundai Elantra seen near the crime scene. This vehicle became the linchpin, connecting disparate data points and leading law enforcement down a path that would ultimately unmask a suspect. The breakthrough came from a meticulous fusion of modern detective work. Investigators poring over countless hours of surveillance footage from the night of the murders painstakingly traced the movements of the white sedan. This digital breadcrumb trail was then cross-referenced with cell phone data that pinged towers in the vicinity of the crime scene and along a specific route, both before and after the attacks. The pieces began to lock into place when this information was combined with vehicle registration databases. The car was traced back to Bryan Kohberger. The final damning piece of the puzzle was DNA. Genetic material recovered from a knife sheath left at the scene was compared to DNA obtained from trash at Kohberger's family home in Pennsylvania, creating a direct link that solidified him as the prime suspect. The invisible net that had been cast wide was now closing in. The exhaustive multi-state manhunt reached its dramatic climax in the early morning hours of December 30, 2022. Far from the quiet streets of Moscow, law enforcement teams, including a SWAT unit, converged on a home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. In a coordinated pre-dawn raid, they breached the residence, taking the suspect completely by surprise. Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home, where he had traveled for the holidays. The operation, a testament to the seamless collaboration between local, state, and federal agencies, brought an end to the nearly 7-week search that had captivated and terrified the nation. The arrest sent a shockwave of relief through the Idaho community, but it also raised a host of new, disturbing questions about the man now in custody. The identity of the suspect was as shocking as the crime itself. Bryan Kohberger was not a shadowy figure from the fringes of society. He was a 28-year-old PhD student in criminology at Washington State University, located just a few miles across the state line from the University of Idaho. The revelation was deeply unsettling. Here was a man studying the very nature of crime, its causes, its patterns, and the minds of those who commit it, now accused of one of the most heinous acts imaginable. His academic pursuits, which included research into the emotional and psychological states of criminals, cast a chilling and ironic pall over the entire case, leaving the public to grapple with the disturbing paradox of his life. Following his arrest, the legal gears began to turn swiftly. Kohberger initially appeared before a Pennsylvania judge, where he agreed to be extradited to face the charges awaiting him in Idaho. The journey back was a heavily publicized event, a somber procession marking the next chapter in the tragic saga. Upon his arrival in Moscow, he was formally charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. In his initial court appearances, Kohberger remained stoic, his demeanor scrutinized by a world desperate for insight. The legal battle lines were drawn, setting the stage for a protracted and complex judicial process. With the suspect in custody and the formal legal process underway, the community of Moscow could finally take a collective, albeit heavy, breath. The gnawing uncertainty that had plagued the town for weeks was replaced by a somber anticipation for justice. The path ahead is long and arduous, a journey through courtrooms and legal arguments that will be followed closely by the entire country. For the families of Kaylee, Madison, Zana, and Ethan, it marks the beginning of a different kind of fight, one for accountability and remembrance. As the trial commences, a community and a nation watch, hoping that the scales of justice will finally bring a measure of peace to a town forever changed.